Welcome back, everyone. Next up, we have Cyngn Inc. It trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol CYN and develops and deploys scalable, differentiated autonomous vehicle technology for industrial organizations. Cyngn's self-driving solutions allow existing workforces to increase productivity and efficiency. Please welcome CEO and Director Lior Tal. Nice to see you, Lior.
Anna, thank you, and thank you for the Emerging Growth team for hosting us today. Before I start, I want to refer you to our safe harbor statement. You can learn more about the risks associated with Cyngn and through filings with the SEC. Now we can start. AI is really changing how people work today. Who hasn't heard of ChatGPT, OpenAI's chatbot, the fastest growing product in history with over 100 million users in the first 2 months. This is not the first time that someone developed a chat system, but this is the one that actually succeeded. Cyngn does to self-driving for industrial applications what ChatGPT does for language models and language applications. We have an autonomous driving system. We invested close to $100 million in developing it. And what it allows now is very easily to develop self-driving applications for different industries and for different vehicles. What's so special about it? We're completely transforming material handling automation by really introducing a next generation driving capability into these environments and putting it in the hands of customers. Our system is scalable, it is cost effective. It can be applied to a very wide range of different vehicles. We've tried it on over a dozen different vehicles, starting from shuttle buses to utility vehicles, and our current focus on material handling. It can operate indoor or outdoor at very large facilities. We have pilots running at warehouses close to 2 million square feet. And it really delivers human-like operation. And that's a function of the data stream that comes from the vehicles back to our system that allows us to continuously evolve and improve the system, very similar to how Tesla does for its autopilot. We're addressing a very significant market of hundreds of billions of dollars in potential revenues by solving customers' problems associated with cost of labor shortage, and accidents coming from human error. But why is that important? It's important because the vehicles are really the backbone of all major industries. You see them at airports, at seaports, at warehouses. Pretty much anywhere you look, you'd see these large industrial vehicles moving cargo that is too heavy for humans to carry and driving it over distances at faster speed. These vehicles are commonly operated at 2 shifts. So you're looking at millions of vehicles and millions of drivers that are required to operate them. And why is that important? It's important because the organizations that have these vehicles carry very high costs because of the dependence on human labor. Starting with the cost of labor, you're looking at hundreds of billions of dollars per year in wages for drivers. And on top of that, you have the damages to property and productivity as a result of accidents that come from human error, and accidents happen all the time. But what COVID and the pandemic taught us in the past couple of years is that the bigger problem is actually labor shortage. And labor shortage by 2030 in the US is estimated to make an impact at the order of $1 trillion in lost potential for productivity. So it's a very, very big problem that we're going after. And automation is really the perfect solution for that. Companies like Amazon and Foxconn really understood it and have been investing in it heavily in the past 10 years or so, because automation is that perfect solution to each of these problems. It is completely consistent. You can operate our vehicles 24/7, 365 days a year, which means that you can really overcome spikes in demand or fluctuations in demand without needing to hire or reduce the workforce when there are those changes. Our vehicles are inherently safer. They see further, they think faster, and they respond much faster than people. They're never distracted, they're never emotional, they just work, right? And that's why these companies, Amazon, Ericsson, Foxconn, have been investing so heavily. And companies that are not able to harness these technologies will have a problem competing with the companies that do. Now, while we believe that everything that moves will eventually become autonomous, and we share that belief with Jensen, with NVIDIA CEO, we think there is an order in which these applications are going to propagate and scale up, in which the open road, the robotaxi the highway trucks are going to come later, and industrial automation is going to come sooner. And I'll talk a little bit later about the reasons for that. But industrial automation and the market we focus on is already a multi-$100 billion a year revenue opportunity because of the factors I talked about earlier. And that's where we're focusing on the short and on the midterm. Our ability to go after that market, similar to what I talked earlier about ChatGPT and the AI engine, is through our product that is called the Enterprise Autonomy Suite, EAS. EAS has Drive Mod, which is the embedded software driving the vehicles. This is proprietary. It was developed in-house. Close to $100 million was put into research and development. And it's been tested on multiple vehicle types, from tuggers and chasers, forklifts, shuttle buses, even SUVs on the streets in California. The customer interacts with the system through a system that is called Cyngn Insight. It is the ability to observe the fleet, to control it, to task it, the ability to even take over and control vehicles remotely if you want to do something different than what the system is designed to do. And it is designed for very intuitive and visual operation. Someone that's been a forklift operator in the past can now supervise 20, 30, 40 vehicles sitting behind computer in an air-conditioned environment. So it is very intuitive and easy to learn. And it controls all the type of vehicles that we offer customers through a single system. Our ability to continuously develop Drive Mod and Insight is through Cyngn Evolve, which is our system, a software development kit, very similar to how Tesla would collect all the data from all their vehicles and simulate new builds and fix problems and enhance the system, and then push it back into the fleet with the press of the button, and continuously improving the capabilities of these vehicles towards the customers. Now, the way we commercialize AS is on a monthly recurring revenue per vehicle. It is a subscription for multiple years per vehicle. The price of the license or the subscription is anchored on the cost of a single operator. So if you can imagine, before the customer paid for 2 shifts for drivers for these tuggers or forklifts or stock chasers, they would pay us the equivalent of a single operator cost, so saving over 50% from day one. So the ROI for these vehicles is very quick. And for us, we offer our software as a service, which means that Cyngn, being a SaaS company with all the associated margins and the fact that we have a very leveraged small team that can support a large number of customers. Now let's talk a little bit about the vehicles in our fleet, the products, these applications that I talked about that we're offering today and what's coming soon in the next months and year. The first vehicle we announced is called a stock chaser. This is a collaboration with the Columbia Vehicle Group. It is a vehicle that can carry loads on the vehicle. If you look at the picture here, it has a platform on the vehicle so people can drive it today and put material on it. In our situation, the vehicle drives itself. People don't need to drive around with the vehicle. They can stay at their stations. The vehicle comes, they put the load on it, or they can connect carts to it and tow weight behind it. We already piloted this vehicle with multiple companies. We announced the first deployment with US Continental earlier this year in their manufacturing facility in California. And we recently announced a pilot with a very large Fortune 100 heavy equipment manufacturer to deploy these vehicles in their large facilities. The second vehicle is through a collaboration. Here it is. Our second vehicle is through a collaboration with Motrec International, another leading North American industrial vehicle manufacturer. If you look at the vehicle here, it is it's like a tow tractor. It is predominantly used for carrying, tugging carts behind it. You can see one cart here, but it can tug all the way to 6, 7, 8 carts behind it, depending on the weight that the vehicle needs to carry. It is used sometimes alongside the stock chaser in the same facility. Motrec, for example, is selling into the automotive industry and many other large industries. So this is a collaboration that's very exciting. We already started prototyping these vehicles and testing them, and they will become available to our sales team in the second half of this year. We collaborate with the Motrec sales team, similar to how we do with Columbia, and through their dealer network, we offer it to their customers into new customers. But probably the most exciting vehicle, and this is the flagship of material handling, is the drive mode AI-powered forklift. This vehicle is a collaboration with BYD, which is a very large and known global EV company. They have a lineup of different sizes of material handling vehicles and very modern forklifts that we integrate drive mode into, allowing their customers and new customers the ability to electrify their forklift fleet and automate it. In this specific case, the collaboration is a result of a paid project for Arauco. Arauco is a multi-billion-dollar wood product supplier that has dozens of facilities and close to 2,000 industrial vehicles, of which about half are forklifts in the operation. They carry very heavy loads, pallets full of wood material, and they stack them to very high stacks, up to 14 feet per stack, and they need to move them around their facilities. Today, there is no readily available forklift automation solution that can solve their problem, carry these weights for those distances and stack them to those heights. So we ran a paid R&D initiative with them in the first half of this year. Upon succeeding with that project, Arauco put in a paid pre-order of 100 electric drive mode forklifts. These vehicles will be supplied to Arauco starting with their South Carolina facility in 2024. And just to put this opportunity in perspective, this is less than 10% of Arauco's fleet, but these 100 vehicles represent over 20% of Cyngn's operating costs. So if you can look at these numbers, a single customer can get us to cash flow positive with the right size of customer, and our funnel is healthy with multiple pilots, with multiple customers. So the opportunities are really exciting with these vehicles. Now, these announcements are on top of a few others, very strong momentum across both the technological and the commercial fronts. We continuously evolve and improve our software system, very similar to how Tesla would improve their autopilot and push new updates to their vehicles. Drive mode and EAS continuously get updated. We announced EAS 9. We'll be announcing another version later this year with a lot of new enhancements, new capabilities based on our learnings from the pilots and requests from customers. We made very significant progress on patent grants this year, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And on the commercial side, we hired a very experienced sales team, two sales executives that have long years of experience in commercializing robotics and industrial automation solutions, and making a lot of progress on pilots, deployments, and first shipments of our vehicles to customers. Now, if you go back to everything that everything that moves will become automated, there's a reason why we're starting with the industrial applications and why we think this is where the adoption of autonomous vehicles is going to be earlier and it's going to scale up much faster, because everything in the industrial facilities is easier to some degree than the open road and what's happening with the robotaxi, passenger vehicles, and trucking. The environment is much more structured. It is much more consistent. The different warehouses or distribution centers for the same company are very similar to one another. So deploying it once takes you a long way to being ready to deploy in others. The operation is slower. The regulatory hurdles are lower. Everything is much easier for the technology to be able to be completed, perfected, and scaled up. So this is a great place to start, but we think there's a still very promising future for this technology across the different industrial applications and beyond. Now, from the customer perspective, the impact of robotics, automation, or self-driving vehicles is apparent from day one. Even with the initial pilots and the first deployments we made, it was very obvious that there is a very significant cost saving on human labor, and there's a very significant impact on productivity because of the consistency, reliability, and ability for these vehicles to work, day in, day out without being disrupted. A customer that can measure the impact on these vehicles can justify expanding it and growing the automation as part of their operation. And other customers in the same industry look at that and eventually make this decision based on these success criteria of the first adopters, the first customers. Now, customers like, look at companies like Walmart and Loblaws, the large retailers, the large manufacturers, the large automotive OEMs. They have dozens of facilities that are very large. They have sometimes hundreds of vehicles of different vehicle types in that facility. Now, working with Cyngn allows them to have one system integrated, one system that their people need to learn how to use, one customer support and success team that automates their entire fleet. And these vehicles, you can start with a stock chaser, you can add tuggers and then forklifts and then other vehicles into that operation. And each vehicle that is added is at much, much lower cost than the first one, is integrated much faster. And all these vehicles, once they're integrated into the facility and part of the workflow, they talk to each other, they share data, they become more effective, they become safer, and they become very difficult to replace with a single siloed solution later. Now, I talked a little bit about Cyngn being a software as a service company. Our focus is really on the software itself and the robotic components, really on the innovation, the things that we're missing from the industry. Our ability to do that is really through collaboration with a very strong ecosystem of vehicle manufacturers, technology companies, and other partners that each contribute their best-of-breed component into the eventual complete solution. And this means that the customer can really get the best vehicle with the best software, with the best support, and the best cards behind it without needing to compromise by working with a single vendor that tries to do everything themselves. I talked a little bit about the patents. Our self-driving system, DriveMod, and Cyngn Insight and Evolve are very complicated. They're a result of many years of development, close to $100 million invested in building them. We take their protection very seriously. It's a combination of trade secrets and practices, but also we already have 10 granted patents with the USPTO. There are 15 others under review, and we have about 20 additional ones that have filed in the past year alone for international applications. This portfolio is really part of our the asset that the company is building as a result of the innovation and the breakthroughs of the technology. Cyngn was originally funded by some of the leading VCs out of California, out of the Bay Area, starting with Benchmark Capital, Andreessen Horowitz, Redpoint, and several others. They're still the largest shareholders at the company. There's close to 18% owned by the employees, the team itself, and the others are held by the general public since the IPO and the PIPE last year. Really, our ability to compete, our ability to move this fast and clear all these milestones and make such fast progress with a relatively small team is through an amazing executive team. We recently hired some key people that are really moving the company forward. People like Sean Stetson, our VP Engineering, previously at Sigrid and at Google. Felix Cyngn, that runs engineering services, customer support, customer success, previously many years at Qualcomm and at BrainCore, and of course the amazing sales team led by Chris Wright that has years of experience in selling, commercializing, deploying fleets of robotic and automated solutions. Before we wrap up, just touch a little bit again on the competitive advantage. Cyngn, similar to ChatGPT, is just a superior driving engine. There's been a lot invested in building the engine itself, which means the applications on top of it are much simpler, cheaper, and better. We've already deployed DriveMod and ES on multiple vehicle types, which means that it is in the company's discretion which markets we go after, which applications, at what sequence. We start with material handling. We started with the stock chasers, moving to the tuggers, but we already piloted DriveMod in mining applications, on seaports, with corporate shuttle buses moving people. So it is very widely applicable. The fact that we're a software company, a data company, and we collaborate with the OEMs, with the vehicle manufacturers, allow us to then allow the customer to choose the vehicle that they want to work with and then add our software to that vehicle, either as a retrofit or off the line new from the OEM. And really today our focus is commercializing the horizontal material movement. This is the tuggers and the stock chasers. Next year, we're going to start adding vertical capabilities. These are the forklifts. And in the future, who knows? Sky is the limit. Thank you very much. With this, I'm happy to take questions.
Great job. Okay, we do have some questions for you. Are you concerned about the cash on your balance sheet? Can you talk a little bit about that and your plans around capital raising?
So I'm concerned. My job is to be concerned, but I think more so is just to be responsible and make sure that we're always well funded, but always aspire at getting the highest quality funding, which means try to get the right investors in and try to avoid toxic types of funding. So at the moment, we're very confident with our sales funnel. We hired a very strong sales team. We're seeing very strong initial opportunities coming through pilots. We also put in place an S3. We have a $50 million shelf registration in place. We have an ATM with Verto in place, mostly for block sales. So, this is something we'll keep an eye on. We will make sure the company is well funded, but also we want to give the company the opportunity to make more progress and show the potential.
And why do you think Arauco chose to partner with you in developing the forklift as opposed to some other automation providers?
It's a good question. If you look out there, there are multiple other forklift solutions available, but Arauco needed something that they don't have. A lot of these forklift solutions out there really tend to the what was called more the vanilla applications, moving standard pallets, reasonable weights, short distances. What Arauco needs is something that is not covered by any of those. They have very high weights. They have very tall stacks. They need something that needs very unique computer vision to detect their unstandard pallets. And Cyngn was really the only one in the position to quickly develop an application for their need because our core AI engine is so strong and it doesn't require building the full solution from the beginning, just adapting it to their special needs.
Now, your solution is available, or it shortly will be available on several different vehicles. So which one do you see as the biggest opportunity?
If you look at the numbers of vehicles shipped in industrial automation by large, you look at the cost of the drivers, you look at the amount of accidents, by far forklifts are the most valuable vehicle. The reason it's not widely adopted so far, it's because it's a difficult application to develop. It's very complicated to drive a vehicle and very accurately operate the fork with the material that you need to move around. We will have these vehicles ready next year. As the Arauco pre-order indicates, we already cleared pilots and demonstrations that it will be ready then. But on the way there, it's not the only application. Like I said, the horizontal material movement, the Tigers, the stock chasers, they're ready, or some of them are going to be ready very soon. And the workflow in many of these facilities combines forklifts with the horizontal movement. So you can imagine a forklift putting a pallet on a tugger and the tugger moving it between stations in the manufacturing line. At the end, there's a forklift that picks the end component and putting it in a truck. Cyngn can automate the full line of vehicles on that workflow.
Also, your solutions will generate a lot of data. So is that potentially an additional revenue stream for you?
Absolutely. These vehicles require sensors, computing, communication to drive, to operate. And like you said, data is a byproduct of the driving, but data itself is an opportunity for the customer to, one, improve the operation of their facility. They can change routes. They can change the organization to streamline the operation of the facility. And there's some examples of robotic solutions that drive and also, for example, scan the shelves for inventory, look at problems in the facility, supervise the human-driven vehicles out there. So definitely the data is a foundation for more products and additional revenue streams in the future.
A question from Jason Lame regarding your latest stock chaser deployment with a Fortune 100 heavy equipment manufacturer. Can you talk about how many stock chasers were deployed and what is your goal when it comes to expanding the manufacturer's fleet and how soon?
So unfortunately, we can't disclose more than what was in the press release, but as a sort of general rule, a pilot is intended for the customer to feel comfortable that the technology is ready, that the product does what it intends to do, and that it is a fit for their needs in their facility. So these deployments are usually 1 or 2 vehicles. There's no need for more of that to make these points. It makes it lower cost for the customer. It makes the pilot fleet more extendable to many customers. These facilities, they differ from one another. You can think about some of these vehicles like stock chasers or tuggers, almost like a virtual conveyor, moving things around in train mode, moving things around sometimes like Uber. You call a vehicle, you put something on it, you send it. So it's really case by case by customers and even case by case by their fleets.
And so Howard Bear asks, how are insurance companies adapting to this type of solution? Is it increasing or decreasing costs to companies that are implementing your technology? Howard says he can see a reduction of headcount, but also he can see weariness in ensuring driverless operation. I'm curious as well.
It's a good question. These are still early days for the actuators to model the impact of robotics and automation on the risk. But if you take a step back and think about these vehicles in comparison to the human drivers, they have multiple layers of sensors and safety. They see very far with multiple types of sensors. The reason we need to count 2 seconds on the highway is because of our slow response rate. It takes us 1.5 seconds from the brain to the foot for an action to happen. These vehicles, they do it multiple times per second. They can operate 10 to 100 times per second. So by design, they're inherently safer, but it will take time for the big numbers in the industry to propagate and to show that they're safer, to show that their productivity is higher, and eventually for the insurance to catch up and see the value.
We have a question from a long-term investor, Kim Moran. Revenue was non-existent in the respective 3 and 6 months of 2022 compared to 2023. So what type of growth rate can we expect moving forward over the next 12 and 24 months?
So we're absolutely focused on revenues. We took the company public at the end of 2021. The beginning of 2022 was already very different. The original plan was to absolutely focus on recurring revenues, get to licenses, get to these monthly subscriptions. As a result of the pressure and sort of the voice of the investors into the company, we took on several paid projects like the Arauco. We talked about one with mining earlier that brought in early revenues. But these revenues are project-based, they're not recurring. What we've identified as a result of hiring the sales team in these initial pilots is that it makes much more sense for the company to really double down on getting the pre-orders like Arauco and getting sales to be deployed as early as we can in 2024 and get to those recurring revenues. And that comes on account of trying to get more projects and more early or one-off revenues, which we think will slow down the overall plan and path to cash flow positive.
And Joe Acosta asks, what type of investment does the end users need to make to the current infrastructure to accommodate autonomous driving vehicles? And how much of an investment on average would they incur, maybe on a cost per foot basis?
It's a great question because it's very close to zero. Let's look at a single vehicle. If you look at the stock chaser, it is usually a $20,000 vehicle. At low volume, the additional hardware needed to make it autonomous is maybe $20,000. At large scale, it goes all the way down to probably $5,000 or $7,000. But then the cost of labor for that vehicle over the 5 years of its operation times 2 shifts is close to $500,000, right? So the cost of the metal itself is negligible compared to the cost of labor to automate it. In order for us to automate these vehicles, all we need is connectivity in the facility. And that connectivity today is not expensive. We can use intermittent connectivity. So really what happens is you had a fleet of vehicles operating at the facility. You add a little bit of computing sensors to them to replace the driver in it. You take the cost of labor out, you add half the cost of it in licenses, and all you need to add to the facility if you don't have it is connectivity. So it is a very quick return on investment. It's a very easy deployment. It does not require very high capex in order to start deploying these technologies.
And Brent Porter asks, what's the proprietary technology that will keep your company growing ahead of the competition?
The biggest investment we've done in R&D is really in the self-driving software and the tools that we use to develop them in that flywheel of collecting the data from the field, understanding our performance and the opportunities for improvement, and continuously updating that system. Where we can, we try to integrate existing solutions, the build versus buy, things that are readily available, that are mature, that are scalable out there. There's no need to build it. We're only focused on building the things that are missing, really the replacement of the driver. In many of these applications, really the heuristic is the application. So understanding the customer, understanding their needs, how they want to operate these fleets, translates into better Cyngn insight, fleet management tools, analytics, actionable insights. So really a lot of it is around the self-driving and the data products.
And last question due to time, Adam G wants you to kind of break down the slide where the bottom left compared the cost of individual vehicles with employees running them versus an investment in autonomous vehicles. Can you break that down?
Again, if you look at the difference between a fleet of vehicles operated by human labor, right? You had 10 vehicles, you had 20 drivers to drive them 2 shifts, and this is an ongoing continuous operation. The customer pays for the labor, fully burdened. There are accidents, they're fairly common. There is productivity loss because some of these people will not show up, you need to replace them. So this is the original costs associated with the baseline operation. Now, you take the same vehicle, you can retrofit it, or if the customer wants to buy a new vehicle, the vehicle, regardless, is out of the equation. You add a little bit of hardware, like I said, 20,000 at low volume, all the way down to single thousands at higher volume. And then the cost of operating that vehicle goes down to half for the customer because we're only charging the equivalent of a single shift to operate them, and they can operate them as long as they want, as long as the power in the vehicle supports it. So it's a very simple equation when it comes from the customer's perspective.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Great presentation, Lior. We appreciate it. And we'd love to have you back in the future with some updates.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you everyone who joined today.
Okay, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back.